Hello everyone and welcome to another Starfield video. My name's Brian if you happen to be new to the channel, but if you're already a part of the 74,611 of y'all that have hit that subscribe button who are taking on the challenge to live debt-free and change your lives as well as enjoy video games, welcome into the channel. If you're not part of this group yet, no worries. You are always welcome that you can decide you want to stick around if you enjoy the content that I like to produce here on the internet. Now let's go ahead and dive in because this is, I think, something really interesting. Obviously, Starfield has had a contentious release. Lots of emotions, lots of good and bad. And in this video, we're going to highlight it. I think the best thing and what we're going to title this video as is that Starfield has restored faith in Bethesda. I think that's going to be the real crux of today's video. But I got a lot to cover with you guys, and I hope that you enjoy it. If you guys feel like these videos earn it, I'm going to just put out a 50 like challenge on this video. You guys do so great when responding to the like challenges, and I do appreciate your support. We're going to start with a little bit of salt, and just because I want to make sure that anybody who's new here knows that I don't delete comments, but what's interesting about Red here is that they actually ended up deleting their comment. If you give me salt, I'm going to give you some truth bombs right back, and that's what I did for Red. But ultimately, I wished him all the best, and at the end of the day, like, you guys are the best. We get a lot of love here, and it's important we focus in on the positivity too. So let's kick it off with some positive stuff. Kareem says, reviewers on Steam stating that Starfield has restored their trust in Bethesda, highlighting a quote from a user: Bethesda has restored my trust in them even after the launch of the state of Fallout 76. Here's a couple things, and maybe in another video we'll talk about the updates to Redfall. They are saying that because it lives on Game Pass, it's going to keep coming. They're going to keep working on it, make sure that it truly delivers as a game that can be experienced. This is something to be commended, with the exception that it is always better to launch a game in a good state rather than have to fix it. But when you think about how Netflix just abandons various series, this I think says that, you know what, we're in it to win it. The game's going to live out there forever for people to play. We want it to be valuable. With this release, I think also this kind of falls right onto the idea that the last thing you did for me is the thing I'm going to remember the most, right? So the last thing really Bethesda has had in their, wheelhouse, not that they haven't released other games. I think Doom is a good example. People have really enjoyed that. But when it comes down to a Bethesda developed, RPG, the Fallout 76 is the thing that's left a lot of, sour taste in people's mouths. Now they have Starfield, and that's not to say Starfield is a perfect game, but that's also to say that Starfield isn't going to magically just make everything worse, as sometimes the internet tends to believe. Now, what you guys have been saying is some real positive things. I think it echoes what I believe. They say Epic says pretty great overall, definitely more of the same from Bethesda, but miles better than 76 and Fallout 4. And then Amy says, I'm having a great time playing this game. I love the space and RPGs, and this one is fantastic. A few minor bugs, but nothing like I expected. I'm having a lot of fun, which is the point of gaming, and I think people forget that while mirrored in their tribalism. And tribalism is the best way to describe it, because essentially when everybody's just trying to score points on one another, like I said, and we predicted months ago, that no matter what this game is, it's going to cause a stir, because there are people who still don't actually recognize that it's now an Xbox, a Microsoft property, and that's something that is truly interesting. We'll highlight here in a second. Let's get into the bad reviews. This is something I find interesting. Peanut Wars says it's bad, lol. And then Mil Ting says, this game is a solid 6.5. Been playing it for about 10 hours now, and it's nothing special or groundbreaking. I wouldn't pay $70 to $100 for it. And then Justin actually is asking, is this free on Game Pass? And so that one, and I want to highlight this comment, is that when it comes down to the Game Pass offering, this is still, I think, fundamentally game-changing to what it means to be a gamer in today's world. That's where, when it comes down to it, yes, people are upset about certain reviews, and we've covered it here. I've given my thoughts about how I don't really necessarily put too much weight onto review scores, because something like Game Pass really takes away that power, and we've seen everybody shift over to streaming for their deciding whether to purchase the game or not. And so that's where Game Pass ends up becoming an incredible value. Now, the question was, would you be free on Game Pass? And ultimately, if you're paying for Game Pass, I wouldn't consider that free. That's just the service that you're paying for. But yes, you do have especially this month, a wide range of games that you can go and check out, which are a part of that service. Now, and a final comment here, Radna Godfrey says, congratulations, Starfield is a bad game. Of which I sarcastically and lovingly reply, "You spelled good wrong." And as the only reason that's funny for me is because I struggle as a dyslexic person with spelling and reading. And so I wanted to have some fun with them, and hopefully they got a good chuckle out of that. Kareem follows us up, says PS5 players upset that Starfield is being exclusive after it finally comes out. They must have thought the exclusivity was a joke. I guess that they can finally taste the medicine Xbox players have had to deal with for over the years. And I'm going to say, like, again, I'm all for Starfield coming to the PlayStation 5. I think that would be a really good thing, because when you start breaking down walls, you can actually build up communities. And Starfield is going to be a game that isn't just a game you play in September of 2023. There's going to be follow-up content that they've already announced. There's also going to be mods and things like that that are already coming out. Lots of cool things that are being done in that world and space. And yeah, it's going to be a game that continues to live on and on and on, and I'd love for PlayStation players to be a part of that. However, this is the downside of that. This is the downside of them kind of cutting these things off, and we all, as we all know, is that there's games that are locked away on a PlayStation and a Nintendo, and it sucks. And any other view of that, it's, you know, doesn't suck. It's like, all right, man, like, why? What benefit does it give you? And I haven't found a legitimate argument. If you guys have a legitimate argument for locking games away on certain pieces of plastic outside of the sheer inability to do it, right? Like, for example, there's no reason why we should bring Starfield to a, T86 calculator, for example. That's just kind of to highlight it. If the system physically can't do it because of technological hurdles, then I understand the exclusivity side of it. But just keeping that thing, I think that is a generational issue, and one that hopefully will see the sunset at some point here in the future. K-Met tweets out, "People pretending that Starfield isn't a win for Xbox are being disingenuous. People pretending that Starfield alone will change the entire perception of Xbox brand are also being disingenuous." And this is, I think, probably the best way to highlight it. It's as I stutter through that sentence right there, at the end of the day, if you can view the console wars as entertainment, as just silliness at the end of the day, like, I think that's all good. But that's where you got the mute button. I don't mute. I don't do these things to people because I believe that they should be able to speak up their voice. And I only kind of mute for all right, you've reached your limit of my patience, and instead of just losing my temper, I just kind of step away. And that usually is lifted around Christmas and Easter, for those of you who are just wondering. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, I do think it does move the needle. It does set up a new starting point for what we're going to see over the next couple years. And I do think that Xbox is going to be firing on a lot of cylinders here over the course of the next couple of years, but we'll have to wait and see. I guess we can always look back to this video and see if that ends up panning out to be true. Giuseppe says, Starfield modding has just achieved a major breakthrough 2 days before the official release with the launch of the Essential mod. The Starfield script extender enables more complex gameplay mods to be made and enjoyed. The floodgates are now open, and this highlights what Darius is tweeting out, saying, "Reminder that these are already the mods for Starfield on Nexus Mods. Personally, will not be using mods until they finish the game." So one of the things I plan on doing here on the channel is to review and step into these mods. It's going to be new for me. It's going to be a little bit uncomfortable because as a former main console gamer and now console, agnostic and PC gamer, stepping into mods still feels a little weird. It still feels a little dirty, but I know this has been a key aspect to PC gaming for a very long time, and it's glad to see that more mods are being supported. So stick around to the channel if you guys are interested in that. But with all of that, I think it's time to wrap up the video and say class dismissed. This is where we jump into some comments, talk about some real life stuff, what's going on in the world, and hopefully just give you some general positive vibes in your day. At the end of the day, one of the things that we deal with is so much echo chamber nonsense that it's easy for us to all get lulled in a sense of, self that is, hyperinflated without any pushback on that. I believe that, at least in discussion and pushback, not that it necessarily changes my mind, but I always want to hear from ideas and from people that disagree with me. And that's one of the key aspects of this, especially when it comes to paying off your debts, to setting up a budget, telling your money what to do. Otherwise, it's just going to go do whatever the heck it wants, and you're going to look at the end of the month going, what happened? But I want to highlight Marvin here. Says, very cool to hear some advice. Never had a creator, especially at this larger size, respond to a comment. So thanks. Super excited for Starfield tomorrow. Glad it is streamable and I can play without buying a Series X and S. So welcome in, Marvin. And yes, one of the things I think is important that I would love to see more of, but I get why creators don't do it, because at some point it becomes untenable, I would assume, to keep up with the wave of comments and the wave of questions that get asked. And I try to streamline that. That's why I try to highlight comments in these videos, because it isn't just, I never want this just to be about my voice. I always think of it as kind of our voice, a collective voice, highlighting all kinds of ideas, because at the end of the day, like I said, I'm very antithetical to the echo chamber. And it's so easy, it's so safe, it's so comfortable to get lulled into that and feel like this is okay, cool, I'm safe, you know. But the world isn't, you know, and I think it actually serves us better in the long run if we push ourselves into our discomfort zone, just even if it doesn't necessarily like change our mind about something, just to understand what other people are talking about, getting out of that, you know, that mindset. And it takes, and this is takes an act of the will on the individual, you know, like you are the only person who can change that. You're the only person who, you know, needs that. And sometimes from a content perspective, this could just be your entertainment, your relaxing time. And you might just be like, all right, I don't want to think about that. So like, I get all of those different things. But what I see here, especially with the, you know, the console wars, and I see this in the comments from time to time, and I highlight those in previous videos, literally saying like, hey, you shouldn't highlight this guy, or you shouldn't raise that person's voice. And it comes from both sides. This is somebody who's like, I shouldn't highlight Reforged or JDub, or I shouldn't highlight Peter, or, you know, so and so. Like, at the end of the day, like, these are voices, these are what the conversation is being had online. And I'm going to share that with you. That's a part of kind of the content offering that I deliver here at the channel, to highlight the two sides, rather than essentially just kind of tell you like, hey, Starfield's great. You're not going to have any problems with it. You might. It might not be your game for you. There's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, especially if you play it over Game Pass, then there's really no worry for that. But when it comes down to it, either view these things as just as entertainment to be had on the internet, or you know, engage with it, kind of figure out where they're coming from, what's led them to these viewpoints, and you might expand your knowledge and actually strengthen your own arguments for or against any of these ideas. And that's actually kind of the advice that I give a lot of people when they talk about, you know, the upcoming elections and things like that. How do you deal with family if they're this way or that way? And it's like, at the end of the day, just ask questions. Like, if you don't have anything to say, if it's going to frustrate you, just ask questions. If, you know, and then you're going to learn something. And if you're learning something, then that's a good thing, in my opinion. Anyway, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this video. I've been sick, and unfortunately, my mom's back in the hospital. So hopefully she'll get out again today. It's, you know, this is just, you know, I guess a fact of life, a way that the world goes sometimes. But thank you guys so much for the prayers and the support online. And yeah, hopefully this video was good for you, and hopefully it brought you some joy, and thank you so much for your time today. Anyway, I'm gonna get back to it, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video. But until then, take care.